Welcome to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast, your trusted source for simple strategies to improve your mental and physical fitness. Throughout this podcast, we will discuss how you can manage your mental health by practicing mental fitness, building emotional resilience and curiosity to handle life's challenges. We'll also highlight the crucial link between physical fitness and your overall mental well-being. My name is DJ Ligori, and I want you to realize that you are not alone with this challenge. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and welcome to today's episode. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. My name is DJ Ligori, and thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 112. I would like to welcome you to the show. Today, what we are going to talk about is a day that changed my life forever. And I think I have hit on this story in small parts before, but I don't believe that I ever actually told the whole thing. So I'm going to try and be brief, brilliant, and done with it. Get the really important lesson across and then attach it to mental fitness like we try to with all of these stories and all of these podcasts. So thank you very much for tuning in today. I'm really hoping that this story and this lesson can be valuable in your life. So when I was in 7th grade, I played basketball for my middle school basketball team. And we had to vote for captains of the team. And my vote was very clear. I was going to vote for two individuals, Nick Ross and Nick Prince. They were the best basketball players that I knew. They also happened to be two of my best friends. And I always viewed personally Nick Prince as the leader of the school, the leader of our friend group. He was always somebody that I looked up to, and still to this day, one of my best friends and still a guy that I look up to and love. And so I remember our head coach, Coach Reggie Gehrig, and I've actually reached out to him and told him this story and thanked him. You'll understand why I thanked him, but he basically gave us the opportunity to vote for our captains. And up to this point, I don't believe I'd ever been given the opportunity to vote for a captain, even though I had been on multiple sports teams. It was typically picked by the coaches. And so this was really the first time as a young man we get to actually appoint leadership. And so we all voted for the people that we voted for, who we thought would be the captains. Like I said, I voted for Nick Ross and Nick Prince. And when our coach read the names of who the team, now the team is probably composed of about 13 guys, who the team voted for, he specifically said, I remember him saying this, he goes, I couldn't agree more, our captains this year are Nick Prince. And I think that was like a given. Nick was a very, very good basketball player, good, tough kid, and a good leader. And so Nick kind of walked out front and he said, DJ Ligori. Kind of hits me a little bit just kind of thinking about it. That moment changed everything. And I remember looking at him and thinking that he was almost joking. And I kind of looked to the left and looked to the right of me, and nobody else was moving, and everybody was just kind of shaking their heads a little bit. And I realized that they agreed with what Coach had just said, and they viewed me in a way that I did not view myself. So I slowly walked out to Nick, and Nick was kind of looking at me, and Nick gave me a little fist pump or something, and I turned around, and me and Nick were standing in front of the team, looking back at the team. And Coach Gehrig said, all right, gentlemen, here are your captains for this year's team. Let's get going to practice. Thank you for voting, and let's go have a day. And I remember starting that practice and thinking to myself, what the hell? What the hell just happened? They think of me as the leader. They view me as somebody who they want to represent this team. I said, I can see Nick, but I don't see this in myself. And right then and there, I realized a very valuable lesson, and this is what I want to talk about today, is that we will have people in our lives who believe in us before we believe in ourselves. And I want to say thank you to those people. Because we have all probably had somebody in our life, whether it was a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a parent, maybe it was a sibling, someone who believed in us before we believed in ourselves. Because believing in ourselves can be intimidating. We can psych ourselves out of a lot of success. And having support from other people who genuinely believe it can mean the world of a difference. And that moment changed the trajectory of how I viewed myself for the rest of my life. For the remainder of my athletic career, I wanted to be that captain. I wanted to be that leader. I wanted to be that teammate and that person who cared about you on a human level first, and then I led you to victory, right? We led each other to victory. I wanted to be that person because I was shown I could be that person. And I needed to see it in order to actually believe it, because I didn't necessarily believe it in myself. Up to this point, I was a pretty skinny kid, right? I was a pretty solid athlete. But up to that point, I'd never viewed myself as this individual who was a leader. That to me became such a strong word. And it was an honor to be up there with Nick, somebody who I viewed as a leader, and to represent that team. And so the lesson here is that sometimes we need others to believe in us before we actually take the step of believing in our own abilities. And when people start to believe in us, it shows us what we might not see. And in the coaching world, and really I think just in reality, I've grown to realize these are called blind spots. And this is such an important lesson here, because every single person, anybody listening to this, has blind spots. Blind spots are essentially ideas, traits, or characteristics that we are just unaware of. Yet other people can help us see them, which then increases our awareness. Maybe it even increases our self-image or our self-confidence, just like the story that I shared with you. And so this is why coaching is so valuable, right? Because when you have somebody else asking you really difficult questions that you might not necessarily want to ask yourself, you start to uncover some of those blind spots. And so the way that I kind of like to think about this is, what if we just actively tried to find the 10% in others that we believed in and that we thought was good about them, and then we actually told them about it? Because they might not see it. They might have a blind spot to that favorable trait. And so a part of mental fitness, and I've mentioned this a couple times before, but there is the saboteur side of our brain, which is essentially the negative emotions of fear, doubt, guilt. And then there is the sage part of our brain, which is more of the positive emotions: happiness, joy, success, pleasure. The sage part of our brain has the 5 powers. And one of those, I explore, activate, innovate, empathize, navigate. The innovate power is essentially our ability to create something new, a new idea or creative thinking outside of the box, right? So we bring an idea to the table and then we develop it into something new that we haven't necessarily seen before. And the exercise that we use to help practice this power is called the yes and exercise. And some of you listening to this might have heard this before, but it is such a powerful exercise, and it can be applied to any sort of communication that you have with anybody. Anytime you're discussing new ideas, use the words yes and instead of no but or no yeah no. How many times have you guys, has anybody heard somebody say yeah no yeah or no yeah no? I hear it all the time. It is actually, I think it's funny now how we say 3 to 5 different answers before we actually just answer the question. It's incredible, right? So instead of saying no but or yes but, what if we tried yes and? Yes and creates that innovate power. And what you end up doing, and this is where it's going to connect to the story and finding and believing in others, is you end up finding the 10% in that person's idea that you agree with. And sometimes it might be hard to find that 10%, especially when there's a debate, right? And there's two varying opinions. But if you keep your mind open to the belief that, all right, they're going to do something, they're going to say something, they're going to act in some way that I'm going to be okay with, that I'm going to actively look for and find that 10%. So as we start to wrap our head around this idea of believing in other people, what if we tried to find that 10% in other people? That 10% that we agreed with, or that 10% that we liked, or that 10% that we aligned with. Don't you think you might have a more of a positive interaction with that person, or maybe even more of a positive effect on that person? Right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to be seen, heard, and understood. That's what makes us feel significant. Nobody wants to bring an idea to the table and have somebody say, yes, but what if we did it this way? That's basically saying, hey, everything that you just said, we're going to ignore that and let's go this way. Nobody wants to feel that. Emotionally intelligent individuals, we actively look for the 10% that I'm going to agree with in that person, the 10% that I believe about that person, the 10% that is one of their best qualities that they might not even see, but once we tell them what it is and we allow them to see that blind spot or ask them questions to allow them to get them to that blind spot, we have the opportunity to change that person's life, or at least positively impact them. So I think today's lesson, because of how powerful that story was, when I was a young kid, I realized that my team saw that 10% in me. My team saw that blind spot that I didn't see. And that completely changed the trajectory of what I viewed myself as. And so I want you to think about the people in your life, whether they're coworkers, whether they're friends, family. What is that 10% that you see in them that they don't necessarily see in themselves? And I encourage you to have the courage to give them that compliment or to give them that awareness. Because there is nothing like having somebody completely change after you said something to them, or after you helped them with something, or after you asked them a good question, a difficult question that they might not have wanted to ask themselves, or they might have even been unaware of to ask themselves. But it ends up positively impacting their life. So be the person who believes in others. And be that person who finds that 10% that is good in that other individual. Or find that 10% in what they said or how they act. Because they might not see it. And they might need you to help. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into today's episode. I hope that you got something valuable out of this lesson, finding that 10% in others. If you did, I would be super, super grateful if you gave the episode and the podcast a rating, follow it, share it, leave it a review. Anything that you do, I'm super grateful of and very appreciative of. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and listening today. I hope that this episode was valuable. And until next time, everybody have a great week, and we will talk to all of you soon. We'll see you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. If you received something interesting from today's episode, we would kindly appreciate if you could leave us a rating or review, or even share this podcast with someone you believe needs to hear its message. The Libraries and Weight Rooms brand is a division of our parent company, Acres of Diamonds, where we are on a mission to end mental suffering through mental fitness. If you would like to learn more about our mission and support this cause, please visit our website at www.youracresofdiamonds.com. Take care, keep leading, and we will talk to you soon.